Hello, everybody.
Following video contains heavy spoilers from the franchise Red Dead. If you have not beaten Red Dead Redemption 1 or 2, then I suggest you go back, understand the storyline,
Well,
and
I've
then come back to
beaten
fully
Red
watch
Dead
this program.
Redemption
If
2.
you have seen it, then enjoy.
How long have you been with these boys? Why ain't you run off? Me? Oh, 20 years, something like that. Since I was a boy. 20 years? Yeah. Taught me to read.
What if Red Dead Redemption 3 happened? When I first saw this picture, it made me think. There is far more to the story of Red Dead Redemption. And then all of a sudden, it clicked. They should make a Red Dead Redemption 2 prequel. Now, of course, this is not likely to happen in the next 10 to 15 years, but this is what it should be if it were to happen.
I say
So
they
you know
should
how in Grand Theft
11, which would have been Red Dead Redemption. The first one would have been obviously John Marston being blackmailed by the government to find Old Dutch and the gang. So, let's see. We go around. So basically, in all reality, I basically am playing the game series right. Because apparently it said something about Arthur Morgan being in the Civil War. So 1920 or 1720 actually. 17 be somewhere between 1689 and 1752.
tablespoons of sugar,
and then
1 teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and stir to
fast
combine.
forward.
Tell me where you're watching us from so I can thank you for following our recipes.
Technically, the game is actually based on actual events.
You guys, this recipe is very
Because
easy.
you
It's
think
so
about it,
delicious. I'm sure everyone
Lemoyne
will
is Louisiana.
now add the rest of the flour and stir until thick. When the dough is firm, knead with your hands. Now put this dough in a bowl. Cover with plastic wrap. And with a cloth. And let it
And
rest.
technically, Red Dead 3 is going to be coming out, but it's going to take place in the part of John or Jack Marston. So
After that, take one of these parts, open it, then close it again, and roll into small balls. Then in a frying pan, add 2 cups of water, 1 teaspoon of salt, and stir. Add all of our dough and let it fry for
So
3 minutes on
basically,
each side. Be sure to make this recipe at home and come back to tell me how it turned out. We'd love to know. Put these spreads on a baking
oh
pan
god,
and
Robert De
about 7
Niro
minutes.
in freaking Red Dead Redemption 3. Oh god.
Put them in the oven at 390 degrees Fahrenheit for 25
Shit.
minutes.
So
And our recipe is ready.
basically,
All you have to do is enjoy. I hope you liked it.
in all
Thank you for watching the
logical
video.
sense,
See
it'd
you
be
next one.
best to play Red Dead Redemption 2, then 1, and then 3. RDR3, what cities will be in that one? Tombstone, obviously. So, honorable mention, Hole in the Wall, Wyoming. Technically, that looks like.
Wake me up in an hour or so.
Alright. Chicago, Illinois, which would be Fort Laramie. Stupid ads. El Paso, Texas. What they should do is add John Wesley Hardin into the third Red Dead Redemption. Dodge City. Santa Fe. Hey, Denver, Colorado. Deadwood. South Dakota. San Francisco. technically stupid. It would be funnier in hell to have John Wesley Hardin in Red Dead Redemption. Number. Let's say it's a New York number.
If you know the extension of the party you are trying to reach, please dial it now. If you are calling about a customer support issue, please visit our website at support.rockstargames.com. There you can find answers to get in touch with our support team online, or in some cases you can chat live to our agent or request a phone call. Please note, we cannot assist with customer support issues on this line. If this is regarding a business inquiry, press 1.
To be honest, I want to see them make.
You have reached the Rockstar Games business line. If you are calling regarding a legitimate business inquiry, please leave your name, phone number, and the nature of your call so that our team may contact you. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Chris Morrell, and I was having a business idea for the Red Dead Redemption series. So, I think for the next Red Dead Redemption, which would be the third, I may be the only one to think of this, but starting from the time of Jack Marston, why don't the game go back to where it all began? Way before the Van Linder gang and what have you, back to around the 1860s and what have you. And on top of that, if anything, I think there'll be at least some interesting characters that should be there, like John Wesley Hardin, the the White Earp family, the a lot of named big names during that era. But my number is 719-259-9445. Thank you. I think that would be a damn good thing. The Warriors. If I wanted, if I just
Berlin Gang and how it all started. More and more characters will slowly join the gang, make while you see everyone in their early years. The gang will also slowly progress the story as they all age to become their most powerful extent. You will see everyone's backstory of how they came about with their relationships. There is just so much backstory and history of Red Dead that should be executed in this future title for all of us to experience. Because the story of Red Dead Redemption goes farther back than you think. The game will be set in the 1870s, and you will play as young Dutch Vanderland, where he was raised in Philadelphia. Unfortunately, his father died in the Battle of Gettysburg, and his mother was buried in Blackwater. This caused Dutch from being a bad kid to a criminal. After you play as Dutch and get a sense of his story, you will then play as Hosea Matthews, who was raised in the mountains. He was briefly a stage actor who had dreams of being a comedian. At one point, Hosea was caught stealing a chicken by a county sheriff, who then decided to hang Hosea as punishment. But a riot erupted at the hanging when a group of people believed his punishment was unfair. So an unknown man came to Hosea's assistance by shooting the rope, freeing Hosea. As Hosea got away with it, the group then hung the sheriff. At some point, the two protagonists will meet. Dutch and Hosea both met at a campfire where Hosea actually tried to rob Dutch, only to realize that Dutch had already stolen from him. Both saw potential and skill in each other and laughed it off, so they decided to team up, founding the Vanderland Gang. The two both began conning people in Kettering, Ohio, into investing into a made-up company. They both were eventually discovered by police and arrested. As Dutch and Hosea rot in jail, you will then play as young Arthur Morgan. You will understand his backstory of his mother dying and how he watched his father die. This caused Arthur to become a wild kid in the streets. After you get an understanding of Arthur's origin,
That's what I
you
like
will
to
then
do.
play as Dutch and Hosea escaping jail. As they escaped, they both came across teenage Arthur Morgan, and this is where they all meet. They saw that this boy was a wild delinquent in the streets and had no one and nowhere else to go. So they both decided to take Arthur under their wing by getting him to join the gang, making Arthur Morgan to be the first member of the Vanderlyn gang. Arthur viewed Dutch and Hosea as father figures to him. They taught him everything he knew. They taught him how to read, write, hunt, fight, shoot, and ride. They raised Arthur.
Basically.
And that is the reason why Arthur looks up to Dutch and Hosea, because not only did they save him, but they also helped him into understanding the world around him. This is also one of the reasons why Arthur heavily looks up to Dutch in the second game, like he was his only father. This is the point where the game will be at its true start of the Vanderlyn gang, with the protagonist you play as being Dutch, Hosea, and young Arthur, the main three. Later in the story, Dutch falls in love with a woman named Susan Grimshaw, who became a member of the gang. She is an OG and is the mother of the gang. Hosea also falls in love with a woman named Bessie, who he later married. He left the gang for some time to be with her. They both drifted away from crime for a while, until Bessie passed away for something that is unknown in the evidence of the history. This broke Hosea hard, and it caused him to be a drunk for a year after her death. This explains so much of why Hosea is the way he is in the second game. He tries to reason with Dutch into resolving things in peace, but has no choice but to be violent.
Why are we doing this? Weather's breaking. We could leave. I thought we was lying low. Yeah, come on. What do you want from me, Hosea? I just don't want any more folks to die, Dutch. We're living, Hosea, but I kept us together. Kept us alive. Kept the nooses off our neck. I guess I'm just worried. I ain't got that long, Dutch. I want folks safe before I go. Me too. And now we are stuck east of the Grizzlies and out of money. And a long way from our dream of virgin land in the west. I know, my brother, but we are safe.
It's their survival. Simultaneously, Arthur is learning about the world. He found a pet dog and had difficulty controlling him, but admired the dog's spirit until the dog passed away. He later got a female horse, Boadicea, his signature horse. He met a girl named Mary, and they became very close to each other. The two were in a relationship. He had a little brother named Jamie, and Arthur became a father figure to him. Jamie looked up to Arthur, and Arthur liked him in comparison to the rest of Mary's family. Speaking of Mary's family, their father, Mr. Gillis, disapproved of Arthur being in Mary's life because he is an outlaw. This caused the two to separate and move on from their love for each other. Mr. Gillis is also a drunk and verbally abused Jamie and is addicted to whoring and gambling. This led Jamie to run away and join a cult. Not only that, but Mr. Gillis pawned off his family's valuables to get out of debt. To make matters worse, Mary moved on and married another man, but he later died from pneumonia, making her a widow. This obviously hurt Arthur. The way Mr. Gillis dictated their love for each other and his relationship to his only son, Jamie. It shows a lot why Arthur Morgan is the way he is in the second game as well. It is very important to the backstory. Then we move on to Dutch's situation. He moved on from Grimshaw for another woman named Annabelle. He then met the infamous outlaw of the West, Colm O'Driscoll, leader of his own gang, the O'Driscolls. The two maintained a loose and uneasy partnership as Dutch disliked how Colm treated his own men as disposable. Colm likewise mocked Dutch for his philosophy in making a better world. Dutch broke the truce and killed Colm's brother. In revenge, Colm murdered Annabelle, which left Dutch greatly angered and heartbroken over her death. This event caused Dutch and Colm to become arch enemies and sparked a years-long blood feud between the two rival gangs, an endless rivalry. Colm would later expand his operation, turning his gang into the largest, most powerful gang in the West. Colm O'Driscoll would be the villain of Red Dead Redemption 3. It shows how personal the rivalry of the two gangs are. He also breaks Dutch by the reason of the history of the never-ending feud. That is why Colm would be the main antagonist of the game. Later in the story, Dutch comes across a group of Illinois homesteaders trying to lynch a 12-year-old boy named John Marston, who was caught stealing from them. Dutch saved that boy's life by killing those men. Dutch saw that little John was an orphan, so he decided to take care of him. He raised John, teaching him everything he knew, just like Arthur. Both Arthur and John were like sons to him, and they both grew up to be brothers. John would be like how Jack was in the second game, still a child looking up to Arthur as his big brother. John will tell Arthur his whole backstory, how his mom died giving birth to him, and how his dad died in a bar fight. That caused John to run away from his orphanage to survive on the streets. He also shot a man at 11 for an unknown reason not explained yet. This will cause Arthur to relate to John and how both
John
of
Wesley
their
Hardin
backstories are
vibes.
very similar. Sometime later, Dutch led the gang's first major bank robbery alongside Hosea and young Arthur. They successfully robbed the bank of $5,000 in gold. After the robbery, they lingered around town, giving all of the money away to the poor in orphanages.
So
During its
basically,
early years, the gang made a genuine attempt to help the poor, envisioning themselves as Robin Hood-like figures in the process. They all became wanted men. Dutch earned a price on his head. Dutch and the Vanderlyn gang were now famous and was seen as a Robin Hood-like figure, causing Dutch to realize that him and his gang could be more than just a violent street gang. This also made him become a very intelligent speaker and better leader. But Hosea became disillusioned with the gang over time when it stopped helping others and instead focused on its own survival, in addition to becoming increasingly violent. This is also where the Vanderlyn gang becomes noticed by the media and is wanted by the Pinkertons. This causes the second antagonist, Leviticus Cornwall, to spark a feud between his Pinkerton detective agency and the Vanderlyn gang. He was always on a mission to end the Vanderlyn gang. Over time, as the story of Red Dead Redemption 3 progresses, you will see more and more characters joining the gang and expanding it. You will get an understanding of all of their backstories and how they all joined the gang. Everyone will age over time, progressing the story. One of those characters is named Abigail. She was introduced to the gang and ended up being involved in it. Apparently, she slept with a lot of the men, including Dutch, Javier, and possibly Arthur. We don't know. But she mainly fell in love with John, and eventually becoming pregnant at 18 with Jack. Speaking of Jack, it's time for a reality check. Red Dead Redemption 3 should not be a sequel to Red Dead Redemption 1.
No.
It should not be about Jack. I mean, the West is already dead after the game, so it wouldn't make any sense to continue the storyline, because that is where the tale ends. Hence why you see the title card, Red Dead Redemption. That's the ending. Plus, it's even sadder, because although the gang, Arthur, John, Abigail, were trying to prevent Jack from becoming a killer, it still happened. Which is why the whole entire storyline of Red Dead Redemption is sad. Because Jack still became a killer. He got his revenge, but that's not what Arthur, John, or Abigail wanted in the first place. The key to the whole story is Jack and how they were raising him to become a good man, when in reality, he still became the killer they were trying to prevent in the first place. That is why Jack is so important to the story, and that is why the ending of the tale is sad. So why would they continue that? Anyways, let's get back to the story. Another character that will join the gang will be Micah Bell.
The snake.
Micah met Dutch in a bar. Dutch was trying to sell some gold the gang stole to others, but the deal went sour. Thankfully, Micah saved Dutch's life. So that's how he got in the gang. He's a very skilled warrior, disliked by the gang. Arthur and Hosea saw him as argumentative, reckless, and hot-headed, with Dutch alone taking a liking to Micah. They both became very close partners, with Micah telling Dutch his backstory, causing Dutch to heavily relate to him. It will show how Micah easily manipulated Dutch and impacted the gang entirely. This is why Dutch trusts Micah's word in the second game, and why Dutch is clueless of who he thinks is betraying him, when in reality, it's Micah. That's the reason why Micah is the villain of Red Dead Redemption 2. Moving on with the story, I think they should add a storyline where Hosea is dealing with the Pinkertons. I think his archenemy would be Leviticus Cornwall. I say this because I think Hosea's death in Red Dead Redemption 2 was very personal somehow. Maybe him and Agent Milton have a history of battling with each other. They should really expand upon that in this game. Despite Hosea not liking to be violent, he still has to be. They should also add the storyline of Arthur's sacrifice of finally becoming a man. We know that Arthur messed around with a waitress named Eliza and got her pregnant with Arthur's son, Isaac. Eliza hated how Arthur survived, but accepted the support from him. He visited and stayed with them from time to time and was a great father to Isaac. But sadly, one day, Arthur came home. He saw 2 crosses outside the house. He cried because he knew they were both dead. He later found out that they had been shot and killed by robbers for $10. The trauma damaged Arthur hard. He was hurt, and it forced him to become a good man. That's why in the second game, Arthur Morgan is the way he is, a good man. Even if he was a killer, he still had a good heart. Hence why the death of Arthur Morgan is the saddest moment in video game history.
No, it ain't.
He sacrificed his life for John and his family. The reason why Arthur didn't cough on Micah is because that's not who he is.
Really?
He didn't want anyone else to go through what he did. He sacrificed his life for others. That is why Arthur Morgan is the best video game protagonist of all time. Sometime later, Arthur becomes an uncle figure to Jack because John doesn't believe that Jack is his son. And to be honest, he might not be. We know that Abigail apparently slept with Dutch and Javier.
We all had her.
And grown-up Jack looks a lot like Javier and Dutch, but we may never know the truth. So John leaves the gang for a year. He does come back, but Arthur feels betrayed because John had what he didn't have, sadly. Now, Rockstar is obviously going to have to add a lot to the storyline of what we already know. There's more of an adventure to the story's past, so that should definitely be acknowledged. They should mainly focus on Dutch and possibly add a new storyline of something we don't know about in his past. That goes for Hosea too.
That dude getting
It's
dragged
like
by
we
that
know
horse.
everything about Arthur Morgan, but what about Dutch or Hosea? There should be new characters that we've never seen before as well. Alright, now that we've gotten the storyline of Red Dead Redemption 3 out of the way, and I'm gonna get to Blackwater in a minute, let's talk about the gameplay elements of the protagonists. When you play as Dutch, you will be the leader. You will lead the whole gang to go on all new adventures, similar to how Johnny Klebitz in Grand Theft Auto 4: The Lost and Damned led the pack of bikers and the gang. You will lead the pack of the Vanderlyn gang and get in battles against the O'Driscolls. When you play as Hosea, you will mainly focus on stealth, taking over businesses with new weapons and gadgets, and being quiet and sneaky like Solid Snake in Metal Gear Solid.
Or being a ghost.
I think they should have Hosea mainly being focused towards the Pinkertons. He will deal with Cornwall and will be the antagonist towards Hosea. When you play as Arthur, it will be similar to Jimmy Hopkins in Bully. You're young, so you will be learning more things as a kid with crafting weapons like slingshots and stuff. Over time, when Arthur gets old enough, throughout the story, he will then earn the gun and finally get to become more cowboy-like as the game progresses. But what if Rockstar decided, no, this storyline is too repetitive and not all that new. We need to change something.
But what if?
And that's where I present to you Mac Calendar. Now, the Calendar Boys are a very serious topic, and I had to include them in this video. The brothers joined the gang and were very violent guys. Apparently, Mac single-handedly beat up 15 sailors in a brawl. Now, when you think about Mac Calendar being the protagonist of Red Dead Redemption 3, it's scary. But I don't think that they should make it to where you're this guy with a separate story from the Vanderlyn gang, and then you join it at the last minute. I still think they should expand on how the Vanderlyn gang grew to who they were in the first and second game. But when you think about Mac Calendar, it kind of makes sense. You see, the Calendar Boys both died in the Blackwater Massacre, which is what we are going to be talking about in a minute. They both were involved in the robbery, and Davey got injured. He got rescued by the gang, but later died in the beginning of Red Dead Redemption 2. But Mac escaped on his own. He was getting chased by the Pinkertons and was eventually caught and killed by Agent Milton. Milton claimed that Mac was all shot up by the time they caught him, and sarcastically states that his death was slow but merciful.
Oh, I ain't gonna swing anyways, Agent.
Milt,
You see, I haven't done anything wrong, aside from not playing the games to your rules.
Spare me the philosophy lesson. I've already heard it from Mac Calendar.
Mac Calendar.
He was pretty shot up by the time I got to him.
No, he wasn't.
Really, it was more of a mercy killing. Slow, but merciful.
You enjoy being a rich man's toy, dear.
if that doesn't sound like some Scarface level shit, then I don't know what does. That gives me protagonist vibes, because his death somewhat sounds like a mix between John's death and Arthur's. So the proof is there. Now let's say Rockstar said, fuck it. Let's just make a new Red Dead that is completely unrelated to the other game's storyline. Well, if they made a completely new storyline, I would believe that to be inaccurate. We obviously know that the story of Red Dead Redemption isn't done yet, And I don't think they should abandon that storyline for a totally new one. I mean, yeah, the story is completed at the end of Red Dead Redemption 1. But what about before all that? What about before John or Jack or Arthur Morgan? What about the story that I just explained? There is
No, what about before Dutch?
more to the story. So no, they shouldn't make a new game that is unrelated to Red Dead Redemption. Now,
I
it's time
would.
to finally talk about the moment you have all been waiting
The
for.
Blackwater Massacre.
Hey, I ain't had time to ask. What really went down back there on that boat?
The Blackwater Massacre. The Blackwater Massacre was the infamous and violent gunfight involving the Vanderlyn Gang, the Blackwater Police Department, and
The
the Pinkerton
Pinkertons.
Detective Agency during a robbery on a nearby ferry. The ferry was carrying $150,000 of bank money, so Dutch and the Vanderlyn Gang tried to rob it. Dutch sent Hosea and Arthur for their own lead. As the gang successfully got all of the money, it was too late. The cops and the Pinkertons soon swarmed the area. It caused all of them to a gun battle, causing everyone to get shot. The highly populated town of Blackwater was in shock, and almost everyone died.
No.
At some point during the massacre, Dutch shot an innocent young woman named Heidi.
Huh?
Are you hungry?
Not really.
Or did you eat something over there?
No.
I'm not thirsty.
Cord in the
Not
head,
really.
killing her. Apparently, Micah Bell encouraged and manipulated Dutch to kill her. After the massacre, the gunfight proved to be devastating for the Vanderlyn Gang.
Almost 11.
A woman named Jenny Kirk, Davy, and Matt Callender were all shot up and died fatally. This entire moment will be the last mission and the
I've
end
been ready.
of Red Dead Redemption 3. I have no idea
I'm hungry.
how they would do the free roam, so Rockstar would have to be clever.
Okay.
I don't know what the
Mhm.
future of gaming will be. I can't tell you that. Maybe we will all finally be inside the metaverse with the VR
See what we find there.
simulation of the Matrix, like Ready Player One. Who knows? But I can tell you this. Uncle is Red Harlow! Now prove me wrong!
I
Oh.
only have 2 days to work this week.
Yeah,
Lumbago.
that's funny. Uncle is Red Harlow. Prove me wrong.
Go figure. It would have to be sunny.